Long ago, in the heart of the Persian Empire, lay a city of splendor, Susa, the jewel of King Xerxes' kingdom. The palace of King Xerxes echoed with music and pride. The king, powerful, impatient, and proud, ruled over 127 provinces, from India to Ethiopia. His word was law. His court was rich with gold, silk, and power. But beneath the palace domes, amid the wine and feasts, a quiet story was unfolding. A story of courage, of purpose, of a young woman whose voice would shake a throne. Her name was Hadassah, a Jewish girl of exile. She was young, quiet, kind. Her eyes held questions, her smiles hid sorrow. Her parents died when she was very young. She lost everything except the faithful man, Mordecai, her cousin who had raised her. He was a man of quiet strength and deep faith. To the world, Hadassah was just another orphan in a foreign land. But to God, she was chosen for something more. Mordecai raised Hadassah as his own daughter, teaching her to love the God of Abraham, to pray, to read the scrolls of Moses, to walk with wisdom, and to trust, even when unseen. She took a Persian name, Esther, which meant star, and her light was about to shine in the darkest of places. In the 3rd year of his reign, King Xerxes held a lavish banquet for nobles and princes for 180 days. Gold flowed like rivers, wine overflowed, power was flaunted, pride ran high, and in a final act of glory, he summoned his queen, Queen Vashti. Beautiful, poised, regal, and proud. And in the midst of this feast, the Queen Vashti, a woman, dared to say no to the ruler of the mighty Persian Empire and refused the king's command to appear. Her defiance shocked the court. No woman had ever disobeyed the king like this. Xerxes' anger was swift. In fury and shame, he stripped Vashti of her crown and had her banished. And a new decree went out. Let the most beautiful young women of the land be brought to the palace, that the king may choose a new queen. The king's messengers swept across the provinces like a desert wind, their scrolls sealed with the royal mark. Every town, every village, every hidden place was stirred. Beautiful young women were to be brought to the palace of Susa. It was a decree that cloaked fear in luxury. When the decree reached their home, Esther's life changed forever. Though she never sought glory, neither did she volunteer. She was chosen and was taken among the many girls to the king's harem. Her goodbye was a silent one. Mordecai had no words, only a long embrace and tear-filled eyes as she was led away. She did not scream, she did not protest. She simply looked back and walked forward into destiny. She was no ordinary beauty. There was grace in her silence, wisdom in her eyes, and though her heart trembled, she remembered Mordecai's words. The royal quarters were like a dream gilded in gold. The walls shimmered, the air smelled of frankincense and saffron. But the beauty was a mask, hiding a quiet competition. Each girl was pampered, bathed in oils, clothed in silks, given servants. But behind every gentle gesture was a test, a test of charm, of wisdom, of identity. For 12 months, the young women were pampered with oils, perfumes, and silks, but Esther asked for nothing. She found favor with Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the women, who saw something different in her. While others sought attention, Esther clothed herself with humility, and grace followed her. It was this quiet strength that set her apart. When the day came for her to stand before King Xerxes, she wore no ornaments, no flashy silks, just royal purple, a heart full of peace, and the favor of heaven. Esther stood before the king. The moment he saw her, his heart was moved, not by beauty alone, but by something deeper. Xerxes set the royal crown upon her head, and so a Jewish orphan became queen of Persia. Feasts were held, music filled the courtyards, the people rejoiced, but behind the laughter, the world remained dangerous. Esther was queen, yes, but no one knew she was a Jew, not even the king. For Mordecai had warned her, "Do not reveal your heritage, not yet." Queen Esther adjusted to life behind palace walls. A dangerous man was rising to power. Haman the Agagite, a descendant of Israel's old enemies, became second in command to King Xerxes. The king raised him high above princes, governors, nobles, arrogant and cunning. He demanded that all bow before him. But one man would not. Mordecai refused to bow. He stood tall, a Jew, a servant of the living God. He would not bow to pride. He would bow to God alone. And so, hatred took root in Haman's heart. But he didn't want to punish one man. He wanted to erase an entire people. Haman spoke lies into the king's ear. There is a people who live differently. They do not obey your laws. Let them be destroyed. The king, unaware Esther was among them, agreed. Letters were sent to all provinces. On the 13th day of the 12th month, every Jew was to be annihilated, young and old, men and women. It was law. The scrolls reached every province. The message was clear. You are no longer safe. Jewish families read it with trembling hands. Fear settled into the bones of a nation. And in Susa, Mordecai tore his robe. He fell to the ground, covered in ashes, crying aloud in the streets, "God, why now? Where is your mercy?" Word reached Queen Esther through her maids. She had lived in comfort while her people wept. Mordecai sent her a message wrapped in sackcloth and urgency. "Do not think you will escape in the king's house. If you remain silent, deliverance will come from somewhere else, but who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." The words struck her like thunder. She turned away, heart pounding. Her entire life, all of it, had led to this moment. "I am only one woman, but I am not alone. That night, Esther did not sleep. She fell to her knees. She fasted. She prayed. God of Abraham, I am afraid. But if this is my time, give me courage. If I perish, I perish. She called for all the Jews in Susa to fast with her 3 days without food or water. And when the third day would dawn, she would walk into the throne room, uninvited, unprotected, and completely covered in grace. Her heart pounded. To enter the king's presence uninvited was to risk death, and yet, alone, afraid, and yet, called. Esther fasted. She wept. She remembered the stories of old, of Moses, of David, of Ruth, and then a resolve rose within her. She sent a message to Mordecai. The appointed day came. She had cried, she had prayed, she had wrestled with fear in the night, but something greater stirred now. Faith. Her maidens dressed her in the royal colors, deep purple trimmed with gold. They whispered words of blessing and kissed her hands. She smiled softly, but spoke not a word. She had already spoken to the only king who truly ruled. Every step toward the throne room was a step toward death. The golden doors of the throne room loomed before her. None could enter uninvited, not even the queen. To do so was to gamble one's life. Silence. All eyes turned. Would the king extend his scepter or let her die? Grace. He welcomed her and asked, Esther, what is it? Ask, even half the kingdom, and it shall be yours. But she did not plead, not yet. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet. The king and Haman came to Queen Esther's banquet. The atmosphere was luxurious. The banquet sparkled with delight. Esther poured wine, and the king reclined with laughter. Haman smiled, convinced of his rising power. But behind her gracious smile, Esther's heart burned with purpose. Again, the king asked, What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. But Esther delayed. Come again tomorrow. To another banquet I will prepare. She was waiting for God's perfect timing. Haman left the banquet elated, chest puffed in pride, until he saw Mordecai again. The man still refused to kneel. Fury consumed him. His wife suggested a solution. Build a gallows, make it 50 cubits high. Ask the king to hang Mordecai on it. And so, in the darkness of night, wood was raised for an innocent man. But the God of Israel was not silent. That very night, sleep fled from King Xerxes. He tossed and turned beneath silken covers. He ordered the royal records to be read aloud. And there was a plot against the king, discovered by Mordecai the Jew. The conspirators were executed, but no honor was given to him. The king paused. What honor was given to this man? None, the servant replied. But the king stopped him first. What should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Haman thought, who else would the king want to honor but me? So he replied, clothe him in royal robes, place him on the king's horse, let him be paraded by a noble official through the city. Excellent. Do all this for Mordecai the Jew, said the king. The words were knives, and Haman, with trembling hands, led his enemy through the streets, robes flowing, horns sounding, crowds cheering, while humiliation burned through his soul. Oh, how the tables turned, the proud man humbled, the forgotten man exalted. The time had come. That evening, the second banquet began, but this time Esther was no longer waiting. She rose, her voice calm but unshakable. "If I have found favor in your eyes, spare my people, for we have been sold to destruction." The king froze, wine forgotten, eyes sharp as a sword. "Who is he? Who would dare do this?" She turned and pointed. "This wicked Haman." Xerxes stormed into the garden. Haman pleaded, but it was too late. The king returned and saw him fallen near Esther and declared, "Will he assault the queen in my own house?" One of the king's men spoke, "There is a gallows built by Haman for Mordecai." The king ordered that he be taken to it, and so the enemy of the Jews perished. The gallows Haman built for Mordecai became his own. Haman's estate was given to Esther. Mordecai was placed over it and over Haman's former position. A Jew, once forgotten, now honored across the empire. Esther again approached the king, her eyes plead, but one problem remained. The king's first decree could not be undone. So a new decree was written, that on the day their enemies attacked, the Jews could defend themselves. Joy erupted, the people rejoiced. And when the day came, the Jews stood strong and prevailed, and so from sorrow to joy, mourning turned to dancing. Esther and Mordecai declared that this day should never be forgotten. A feast was established, Purim, to remember the great deliverance. Esther's voice echoes one last time, "If I perish, I perish." But she did not perish. She lived. And because she lived, so did her people. She was just one woman, an orphan, a queen, a voice that could not be silenced. She did not rely on beauty or charm, but on faith, courage, and timing. Esther demonstrated faith and courage. She was not afraid to stand up for what was right, even at the risk of her own life, which resulted in her saving her people from annihilation. Another vital lesson. Esther was faithful and obedient to her guardian Mordecai, who raised her in the way of the Lord. And as a result, she had God-given wisdom, which was reflected in the way she strategically revealed the oppressor Haman's plot against her people. She left a legacy of wisdom, courage, and humility, something for which she will always be remembered for generations and generations to come. What about you? What are you here for such a time as this, in a world that often stays silent? Will you speak up? Will you stand up for what is right, even when it might be difficult to do so? Will you trust in God, even if when you're afraid? Drop your thoughts in the comment section, like and share this video if Esther's story inspired you, and don't forget to subscribe to Kingdom Peace YouTube channel for more Bible movies and encouraging messages that stir the soul.